Good evening and welcome to Practice Today, presented by SiriusXM. I'm Olivia Landis, joined by Eric Allen here at the Atlantic Health Jets Training Center, where the Jets just wrapped today's session in preparation for their Week 2 matchup against the Dolphins and a home opener at MetLife Stadium.
Liv, I gotta interrupt and say Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, because I got the green, you got the red on.
I actually didn't even notice that.
We are looking very festive for practice today.
Happy holidays, folks, from Jets 360 team reporters.
That's right.
All right, so the team just finished another session in preparation for their home opener against the Miami Dolphins, but they're coming off of a very big win back in Detroit on Monday Night Football primetime. That was a big win for the Jets.
Olivia, it was something else. Less than 48 hours ago, the Jets were indoors in Detroit, and a 31-point third-quarter explosion. They scored in all three phases. Touchdowns on defense from Darren Lee, special teams, punt return from Andre Roberts, and then, of course, the rookie Sam Darnold had a pair of scoring passes, and Isaiah Crowell in the end zone a pair of times. It was really something else. Could have been worse, frankly, because Todd Bowles, before and after the 2-minute warning, instructed Sam Darnold to kneel down when the Jets were right about here, inside the 5-yard line in Detroit. So all in all, it was an incredible effort. And I'll never forget the scene behind the Jets bench, Olivia, when all the Lions fans had cleared out of the building and you had hundreds of the Jets faithful chanting Jets, 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 na 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 na, hey, goodbye. It was an unbelievable start to the 2018 season. You couldn't ask for more.
And we obviously have to address Sam Darnold. Of course, we've talked about it. First throw of his professional career, a pick six. But something that was very interesting about that entire situation, Todd Bowles talked about it after the game, was how the entire team, the entire offense was lifting Sam up and saying, don't worry about it. This is going to be okay. And one of those guys that was right in his ear immediately was Josh McCown, lifting him up. We saw a little bit of that behind the scenes and telling him how you got to keep your head up and you have to keep going. So despite that first little flub in the first quarter, the team ended up coming back and having quite the phenomenal game.
Olivia, you're right. It's a great point. I talked to Quincy Enunwa about that last night on Inside the Jets, which I co-host alongside former Jets safety Eric Coleman. And Q told us, hey, listen, as soon as that happened, the defense looked at Sam Darnold and said, we got you. Don't worry about this kid. And he didn't. As Todd Bowles said immediately after the game in a post-game press conference, he didn't flinch. He didn't blink. He has an even-keeled personality, and as Christopher Johnson said today, and we'll talk about the Jets CEO later, the guy has the personality that can handle New York, and we saw that because a lot of people, they would have went looking for the hole inside the stadium to crawl under, but Darnold came right back. The Jets responded with 17 points before halftime, and then what really showed me something is when the Lions came punching back in the second half to make it a 17-17 game, Darnold led the go-ahead drive that culminated with a touchdown pass to Quincy Enunwa from 21 yards out to make it 24-17. And then it was like an avalanche after that.
Well, something that is worth mentioning is the 31 points that the Jets scored in that third quarter alone. That is the most, I believe, since 1950, 1960. What is the stat?
Yeah, 1950. Our amazing Randy Lang came up with that stat. I believe or the Jets PR department, but 1950, I think you had to go back to have a 50-point third quarter in professional football. As it was, the 48 points were the most by any team in franchise history. And, of course, the Jets go back to 1960 when they were the Titans. So remember that, the Titans.
Well, something also very interesting for the Jets, all three phases scored. You mentioned Darren Lee snagging 2 of his first career interceptions. One was a touchdown. Andre Roberts on special teams running that punt back for a touchdown. And then, of course, offense got the job done as well. That's pretty incredible to have 3 phases scoring in one game.
Well, I know some people were concerned about the special teams after the Jets had a couple hiccups against the New York Giants in that third preseason game, but Brant Boyer had these guys ready to go, and Roberts gave the return game a great punch. And you have to give guys beyond the returner some credit, like that on that touchdown from Andre Roberts, Teron Peak, a guy who made this team, who gives you depth at the wide receiver position, and Terrence Brooks, a backup safety. They came in and sprung him free down the sideline. So, and then defensively, Liv, you mentioned Darren Lee. The Jets had 5 interceptions in all. Matt Stafford had 10 interceptions in the entire 2017 season. They had 4 of Stafford. And then it was great to see Jamal Adams get his first professional interception. That came courtesy of Matt Castle. And then it became like a dance party. And the Jets took over Detroit there. So a little bad luck from Eminem on the coin toss because he came out with the Lions and the Jets took over that building.
Another third quarter standout was Crowell's 62-yard run. His 62-yard run. Longest on-the-road run for the Jets in franchise history.
Isaiah Crowell goes over 100 yards in his first performance for the New York Jets. I thought Bilal Powell was very good as well. We talk about offensive balance. The Jets pounded away at the Lions, and conversely, the Lions were not able to establish a run game. But that tandem, Bilal Powell and Isaiah Crowell, gives you a lot of flexibility. Both of them can carry the ball out of the backfield, of course, and they're shifty, but they have good vision. They can explode through that hole, and they both can catch the football out of the backfield. So those 2 guys are going to be big for the Jets and Sam Darnold as we continue to see this offense develop. I thought the offensive line played very well, too. They kind of go under the radar. A lot of times Sam Darnold was afforded the time he needed back in the pocket, and when the pocket collapsed, he showed us that ability to feel it, be instinctive, find some space, move out, be accurate on the run. I think about that first scoring drive when Crowell punched it in from a couple yards out inside the 5-yard line. Well, that came after a third down conversion when Darnold bought himself time, and Enunwa adjusted and then made a fantastic catch that kept the drive alive on third down. The Jets offensively did a great job on third down in the first half. You rarely see that from a rookie quarterback. Jeremy Bates, the Jets offensive coordinator, did a good job as well. I really enjoyed the third down play where he called a design run for Sam Darnold out of the shotgun, and he converted there as well. So a lot of positives to take out of the game. Now, Olivia.
A lot of positives,
what people are asking us now is it okay to be excited? Well, of course it's okay to be excited. You got to embrace the moment. And the Jets put on one of the better performances in the National Football League in Week 1.
Yep.
But what we've heard, and you were just down in the locker room. I know you talked to Avery Williamson today. We both were in there as Christopher Johnson addressed the media. Todd Bowles talked about it in his post-game speech. Listen, it's one game. It was a great game, but it's a 16-game season.
As we look forward to Game 2, let's move on to who you have that is going to be taking off versus the Dolphins here Week 2 at MetLife Stadium. Who is your player that you have that's just going to have a great game?
Well, the guy who's taken off in 2018, you could go in any number of directions after the Jets played so well in all 3 phases, but I go to Quincy Enunwa. Guy had 6 catches. He was targeted 10 times, 63 yards receiving, 1 touchdown. He is a matchup nightmare. You get him on the inside sometimes, and he's matched up against a linebacker. He's got too much speed for linebackers in the National Football League. You get him on the outside, you get him matched up against a cornerback. He's too big. He can out-muscle guys there. You also can bring him inside. It's like having an extra tight end in there as well. He is also an energizer player. When he is going, you see the sideline jumping up and down. And he is one of the fan favorites, number 81, for the New York Jets. So for a player taking off, there are about 25 candidates, but I'll go with Quincy Enunwa.
You're going to narrow it down to Quincy Enunwa.
How about you?
He had quite the game against the Detroit Lions. I'm going to say Sam Darnold is my takeoff player. He completed 16 for 21 passes, had 2 touchdowns in his career start. That is not a bad start for a rookie, to say the least. So I would say that watching the way the players corralled around Sam and the way Coach Bowles talks about Sam and how he was able to really pick himself up, especially off of that first pick that he threw, first throw of his professional career, the way he performed for the rest of the game, he is my takeoff player. And as a matter of fact, the media was able to talk to Sam Darnold earlier today and get his input on what he's looking forward to about Week 2.
Are you happy to have everything behind you? I mean, first pick, first game, first win, everything?
Yeah, it's a nice feeling to be able to, really get my first win under my belt. That's a really good feeling more than anything. Just to be able to win a game in the NFL, know I can do it. Even though I did know that I could do it, it's just a nice feeling to actually go out there and execute with my teammates, especially the way that we did. But yeah, moving forward, I'm confident in myself and confident in my teammates, as we all are in each other.
It's a big stage to go out there on a Monday night game, first game. Did you notice kind of the attention ramping up around you, whether it be even at home, around here? And is it something that you're going to have to get adjusted to? People know. I mean, the country is kind of seeing your face there.
Yeah, I'm pretty used to, just from being at SC, I'm used to some attention, and I know leading up to my last year at SC, it was kind of hectic in terms of Heisman talk and all that kind of stuff. But I'm pretty used to that. But it's different now. Being in the NFL and all these expectations and everything, it's different. But at the same time, I'm just going to continue to be myself. I've been myself my entire career, high school, college, now the NFL, and I don't see myself changing anytime soon.
Sam, how much does it help you when the run game's working? I mean, I know it's quarterback's best friend, all that stuff, but just like, taking the burden off at SC, you had a good running game as well. Yeah,
I mean, whenever the run game's going, it's a lot easier to pass the football. So that's how I look at it. But also, it's nice when the O-linemen are able to get a push and be able to move guys the way that they did. So, and it's not easy against that Detroit Lions defensive line. So it was awesome to be able to see our guys perform the way that they did up front, and our running backs run the ball the way that they did.
How are you able to keep so composed? Have you always been like that? Growing up, was it always pretty much?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've always kind of had that calm to me, just a calm demeanor and all that. But especially, I guess after that first play, it was just a matter of not messing up anymore and just going out there and taking what the defense gives me. That's really all that I could control after that, because I know whatever happens in the past is the past, and that's how I look at it. That's kind of how I was raised as well, and I think that has a big part to do with it.
The fans are talking a lot. The media is too. Have you got a whiff of what's been going around town the last couple of days on the radio and the talk of Broadway this, Broadway that?
No, not really. I haven't been paying much attention, but I'm sure people are talking about how good they expect our team to be in the next few years and all that. But I'm just going to continue to focus on the next game. That's all I can control, and that's what I'm going to do every single week.
How does the short week affect your preparation? You're still trying to find your routine, your rhythm, and now you have this short week. How does that affect?
Yeah, well, I think, again, being able to go a guy like Josh McCown, to be able to look to him to figure out what to do in these situations, because he's probably been there and done that, which I know that he has. So it's good to be able to go up to him and look for advice and on this short week. And even the week after that, that Thursday night game as well. So it's cool to be able to have him in my corner, giving me tips and giving me advice whenever I need it.
Based on the reactions after the game, speaking of Josh, it looks like your family's really adopted him almost. They were, your mom and your dad were just really.
Well, my parents know how much that he's helped me throughout this whole process. He's been nothing but the best. So. I tell my parents all the time how awesome it is to have a guy like Josh, and when Teddy was here, how awesome it was to have a guy like Teddy. Really two vets in here. Now even to have a guy like Davis. I mean, There's so much football knowledge going around, but again, to have Josh here is special for me.
Sam,
Sam,
how much?
I know it's hard work and it's your job.
Mm-hmm.
Has this also been fun?
Yeah. Playing football, I feel like I live my whole life to play football, and it's awesome to just be able to do that for a living. And I'm embracing it every single day. I love the guys in this locker room. So it's awesome to be able to come to work with a smile on my face every single day and do what I love.
Presented by SiriusXM, Olivia Landis and Eric Allen here at the Atlantic Health Jets Training Center. It's always good to hear from the rookie quarterback, correct?
Oh, yeah. And he's feeling good. But like we've said, and he said on multiple occasions, is that you take a level-headed approach. Yeah, I'm happy with the way I played, but I know I have a ways to go. Mm-hmm. And he's seeing his second NFL defense this week who is actually going to scheme against him. But listen, if you're a Jets fan right now, you got to be really happy where this team is at the quarterback position. And I continually say this, think about how far they've come since January. With all that being said, and Todd Bowles addressed the quarterback position today, and we'll talk about Bowles later, is that he's played one game. You can't anoint him anything just yet. The early returns are in, though, and he looks pretty darn good.
Somebody that we talked to earlier that made a visit out here to the Atlantic Health Jets Training Center was Christopher Johnson, owner and CEO of the Jets. He actually talked a lot about Sam Darnold, and when asked where he was at when Sam threw that first pick, he said, I was actually in an elevator, a glass elevator, and when I heard the crowd go really loud, that's when I knew we didn't have the ball again. And he said, my heart sank, but he never lost trust in Sam Darnold.
Yeah, he's got a lot of confidence in him, and I think a lot of people throughout the organization would say the same thing. Christopher said, hey, this guy's wise beyond his years. He is uncommon. There's a lot of uncommon character traits of Sam Darnold, and obviously he said he got punched in the face. And what do you do when you get punched in the face? You either cower or you come back, and this kid's a fighter, so he came back and he handled himself the way you would want somebody to handle an adverse situation. And Christopher said that he has uncommon traits. You have to be different to handle yourself in New York. This is the media capital of the world. But the thing that jumped out to me is a lot of the media members were asking, hey, Christopher, where do you want this team to go? And he said, listen, I want this team to go to the Super Bowl. If you're not trying to get to the Super Bowl, I don't know what the hell you're trying to do.
He did say that.
And he's also a guy who's very much enjoying his role as the Jets CEO. And in fact, his older brother said Woody is very happy with the job he is doing here with the New York Jets. So it's fun to hear from the owner. He's embracing this opportunity, this moment, this organization, and it's another thing he said, Liv, no mandates, no playoff mandates, because a lot of people are saying
that question kept coming up.
Right? Yeah.
What are the mandates?
What was your take on that?
Well, Christopher Johnson was very solid in his response, and every time somebody asked that question, he said, there are no mandates. I don't have any mandates. He has very high expectations for this team, as do a lot of individuals, but he said he has trust in the process. He did mention how, hey, you know what, I'm not the most patient man in the world, and he said he doesn't expect the fans to be patient. However, he has a lot of trust in Todd Bowles, GM Mike McCagnon, and this team as a whole. So he's not putting a mandate on any Super Bowl, on any amount of playoff wins, but he said he's excited and it couldn't happen any faster.
He's having the time of his life.
He is. He said it's a great gig.
Yeah, and you can tell it with the smile he walks around inside this building. He likes his team. He likes this organization. Everybody's on the same page in terms of Mike McCagnon and Todd Bowles, the plan. Again, while the Jets are happy where they're at right now, it's 1 out of 16 games, and that's something that Christopher Johnson stressed. That's what we heard from Todd Bowles. That's what we've heard from every one of these players on the roster. So interesting stuff from Christopher Johnson today, but he's much like the fan base. he can't get to a Super Bowl fast enough. He has said it on record. He didn't say it today, but I can't wait to get a Super Bowl in front of while my brother's away so I can have something up on him.
It was always really good to hear from Christopher Johnson. But one thing that he did say that stuck out, which matched with what Todd Bowles spoke about, this is game 1 out of 16. So each game this team is treating as an individual. Now, heading into the home opener versus the Dolphins are also 1-0.
Yep.
So with the Jets having that in mind, they're treating this, they celebrated the victory, which, you know, good for them. They were excited to celebrate the victory. But now that it's put behind them, you know, like Steve McLendon said, we have to keep in mind that each game we have to treat it as if we're 1-0 each game. So heading into this, the Dolphins are also 1-0.
Divisional contest. Miami won at home last week against the Tennessee Titans. A long game that had a number of weather delays. Ryan Tannehill back in the picture for them, the quarterback of the Dolphins. They got a different look on the outside. Jarvis Juice Landry, for anybody who watch Hard Knocks, you guys know this at home. He's in Cleveland now. Kenny Stills is the deep vertical threat there. Danny Amendola, the former New England Patriot, he's also part of the receiving corps. And then Albert Wilson, a former Kansas City Chief wideout, is also one of the targets for Tannehill. But this team wants to get the run game going. They have a good backfield. Kenyon Drake, he's a little explosive guy. He can do it all out there. And Frank Gore, who ironically is 14 yards shy of tying Curtis Martin for 4th on the NFL's all-time rushing list. Miami's going to come here and try to pound away. Detroit got away from their run game. They put the ball in Matt Stafford's hands and said, we're going to try to attack you through the air. Well, New Jack City came to play. The Jets...
New Jack City came out to play, that's for sure.
The Jets, Sunday afternoon at MetLife Stadium, and that place is going to be hopping. They have to shut down Frank Gore and Kenyon Drake. And then if they can do that, Casey Rogers and company are going to come after that quarterback. You got to give the Jets defensive coordinator a lot of credit, too. He did a lot of interesting scheming out there. I saw Leonard Williams on one play lining up at linebacker. I know the Lions were probably a little bit unprepared for that.
Yeah. So a lot of weapons that the Dolphins have on the offensive side of the ball, but the defense is something that could present a challenge for quarterback Sam Darnold and a lot of his offensive guys. Now, they had a great performance, like we talked about, 31 points in the third quarter. However, he really has to address this cautiously because the Dolphins' defense presents a challenge.
Well, it always starts with Miami. When you're talking about the Dolphins offensively, Cameron Wake, I feel like he's been in the league for 36 years, but he's still playing at a high level. Ndamukong Suh has taken his talents to L.A. He's playing with the Rams now, so he's not in the middle. That's a familiar face the Jets won't be dealing with this year. Kiko Alonso is a fast linebacker, who's all over the field, nonstop motor. And then the Dolphins have one of the finer safeties in football, I believe, in Rashad Jones. Because the Jets talk about their safeties often, and Jamal Adams, I think, is going to be a star, frankly. He was all over the place against the Detroit Lions. Rashad Jones, very good safety in his own right for the Dolphins. Dolphins are kind of changing their identity a little bit. When you think about them last year, you thought about guys like Ndamukong Suh and Jay Ajayi, the running back who was traded to the Philadelphia Eagles, and Jarvis Juice Landry. Well, all those guys are gone now. But the guy they have back in the saddle is Tannehill. But they are, even though they play down in Florida and Dan Marino used to be throwing the pill for years, they're going to try to establish a run game. The Jets totally took away the Lions' run game, and then they flustered Stafford left and right. I anticipate even more pressure on the quarterback this week because I think the Jets are going to be tough to run against all year.
It'll be an interesting matchup this Sunday at MetLife Stadium, but now we're going to toss it to head coach Todd Bowles, who was able to speak to the media earlier today.
Todd, I know it's obviously early, but to have a young quarterback whose future looks as bright as Sam's, how does that change the feel of an organization, the tone of an organization, just sort of that overriding feel that you have, knowing or believing that that spot, perhaps for years and years to come, is now filled?
Well, it's early again, and It's not just Sam. I got to worry about 52 other guys as well. That's the totality of the team, not just the quarterback. I have the feel. The chemistry between each guy is very important, so I wouldn't put that solely on the quarterback.
But it's been a long time for this organization to find a franchise quarterback. Is there a feeling that you got one?
Well, we won one game, so I can tell you after about 100 more of them, whether we have one or not. Right now, it's a little early.
Really?
We might not be here at 100.
That makes all of us.
Welcome back to Practice Today, presented by SiriusXM. Eric Allen and Olivia Landis here. Good, solid words from head coach Todd Bowles. Now I want to jump to an injury update that you have for us, EA.
Yeah, 3 guys who did not play against the Lions. You got an update on them from Todd Bowles today. Josh Martin, outside linebacker, who did not play against the Lions. He remains in concussion protocol. Marcus May, who was out in week 1 with the foot injury, he did not participate in practice on Wednesday. We'll have to monitor his progress throughout the week. And finally, some good news on Jermaine Kearse. He was a full participant in practice today. Todd Bowles stopped short of saying number 10 is going to be out there on Sunday. He's going to have to see how he responds to practice throughout the week, dealing with that, coming off that abdomen injury, I should say, and they want him to get his wind up. But all signs moving in a upward direction for Jermaine Kearse. And think about what the Jets wide receivers are going to look like if they can get Kearse back in the lineup, because we saw Robbie Anderson with the long touchdown. We saw Quincy Enunwa be all over the field. And Terrell Pryor on that game-winning drive in the third quarter, I should say, when the Jets responded, when they needed a drive. Terrell Pryor had a couple big catches there.
It'll be key to have not only those 3 players, but the rest of the injured players that are suffering, from minor and major injuries, to have them back on the roster, especially this Sunday against the Dolphins. We will see. We'll have more updates for you at that time. But listen, we know you guys love the show, and guess what? You can have more of it this Friday. Practice Today will also air with EA and our other team reporter, Ethan Greenberg. What time can they expect that?
That is a great question.
To be determined.
But we will
determined.
We will get that out to you for those watching live on all our social platforms, and of course NewYorkJets.com. But Jets, Dolphins Sunday at MetLife Stadium.
Jets Dolphins Sunday. Yep.
You talk to people on Twitter and on all the social platforms. I anticipate this to be a lively crowd. Everybody going to be in their seats by 1 o'clock, because I think the Jet fan right now is sensing a start of a new era. The Jets took a jump last year. Yes, they only won 5 games, but you started to see that chemistry coming together. Now you're starting to see an identity come together. Let's see what the Jets have to offer in week 2, but we'll get into that pregame Central on Friday.
All right, so Jets fans.
Oh, excuse me. I jumped ahead. Pregame Centrals with Anthony Becht on Sunday.
On Sunday.
So that's Sunday. And we'll be back Practice Today. Brought to you by SiriusXM on Friday.
All right, so like EA said, Practice Today this Friday, presented by SiriusXM. Eric Allen and Ethan Greenberg on that show. Well, that wraps up Practice Today, presented by SiriusXM on Wednesday. I'm Olivia Landis, joined by Eric Allen. But before we go, we're going to leave you with team reporter Ethan Greenberg, who was able to catch up with Dan Graza, ESPN Radio pre- and post-game Jets radio host.
Thanks, Olivia. Outside here, the facility with ESPN's Dan Graza. Dan, there's so many things you could take away out of Monday night's performance. What stood out to you?
How much time do we have, right? Like you said, there were a lot of them that you could take away from. But I think a couple of things that stood out to me. Number one, the play of the defense, of course. Not only the fact that they were able to shut down a high-octane offense like the Lions with Matthew Stafford and those pair of 1,000-yard receivers he had, but also the turnovers and the defensive scores. Those are some things that we were calling for the last couple of years that you wanted to see from this defense. Being able to convert it into points, they did that tremendously. I thought Darren Lee played the best game of his NFL career. Moving into year 3, you expect a lot more from him. I thought the game slowed down a lot for him on Monday night. I hope to see more of that moving forward. The other, obviously, is the special teams. The special teams was a big area of concern that we had talked about ourselves in the summertime during training camp. Andre Roberts had a phenomenal debut in the return game. Geez, it's been, 5-6 years since the Jets had a last return touchdown, and he did that. I mean, they didn't allow the Lions all-pro returner to even even get his hands on a ball to return. So tremendous job, I think, all around from those two phases specifically.
Moving forward to Sunday's home opener against the Dolphins, what are you hoping to see from this Jets team? Do you have your eyes on a couple players?
Not necessarily a couple players, more about the team as a whole. You know, how do you not get overconfident? You know, I wrote about a piece on the website, Ethan, and I mentioned in the postgame the other night. You know, I remember back to '97, the season opener, Bill Parcells' first year as a head coach. Jets go out to Seattle. They blow out the Seahawks 41-3, riding high, feeling good, much like Monday night. Then they come home for the home opener week 2 and lose to a mediocre Buffalo Bills team. The tricky part about rivalry games, Ethan, you know that, with the Dolphins, you throw the records out the window, you throw what happened the previous week out the window. It's a brand new game, and I think that it's going to be incumbent more on the players as opposed to even the coaches to just keep a level head and realize it's one win, but they didn't really haven't accomplished much yet.
We'll see what happens Sunday. Again, Jets-Dolphins, 1 o'clock. That's all we have here. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks again, Ethan. All right, Jets fans, be sure to join us this Friday for Practice Today, presented by SiriusXM with Eric Allen and Ethan Greenberg. We'll see you then.